Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Eron the Relentless. I just wanted to try something new and start doing deck techs and offer some tips and guidance for commander players of all sorts that may need some help deck building and learning how to play in certain situations. I don't begin to presume that I know everything, but I played for a very long time and in varying various formats, various competitive levels. So. Um, I'm mostly a casual commander player nowadays, and I just like to have fun with my friends. But I do like to make decks that are optimized based on synergies. Power level wise, I generally play right below, high power. So I do have some of the tools, but I usually don't play the staples such as like University Study, Smothering Tides, things of that nature, Mystic Remora. I think that if you want to play that style, you can, but I generally won't. And my player group. Um, my play group doesn't play like that either. So I think let's get into the deck tech. So the commander I am featuring today is called Toluz Clever Conductor. This is a rare from Streets of New Capenna. It is a legendary creature, human rogue, 3/1. When Toulouse Clever Conductor enters the battlefield, it connives. Connive means to draw and discard. Draw a card and then discard a card. If the discarded card is a non-land, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So uh, basically, the connive is just kind of a bonus. You're really looking at the next two text blocks here is whenever you discard one or more cards, exile them from your graveyard, and whenever Toulouse dies, put the cards exiled with it into their owner's hand. So you may ask yourself, it's kind of a dirtily commander, good colors in Esper, white, blue, black, um, and you do have access to a lot of good tools in those colors, but why would you play this deck? So I'll go through kind of what I was thinking here, but the main reason is I found kind of a loop you can perform with this deck, and it's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces, but as you go through the rest of the deck and I feature some of the cards, you'll see why um, there's a lot of bonus you can draw from having a kind of an outlet where to lose accrues value for cards you discard. But essentially, if you have these three permanents in play, Bone Miser, a four and a black for a 4/4 zombie wizard. Whenever you discard a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever you discard a land card, add black mana to your pool. Whenever you discard a non-creature non-land card, draw a card. Uh, Chthonian Nightmare, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. One in a black enchantment from Modern Horizons 3. Whenever this enters the battlefield, gain 3 energy. Pay X energy, sacrifice a creature, return Chthonian Nightmare to its owner's hand, return target creature with mana value X or X from the graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. This is a callback to a card called Recurring Nightmare that was released in the late 90s from the set Exodus. It's banned in basically every format except for Vintage, I believe. Even banned in Commander would be too powerful. Um, Actually, it's illegal in pre-modern. I'm sorry. The next piece of this combo is going to be Zombie Infestation in terms of having the most effective discard outlet um, in your win condition. Zombie Infestation is one in the black for an enchantment from Odyssey. Discard 2 cards from your hand, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into play. So essentially, the loop goes if these are in play, you'll be able to you'll have some cards in hand, right? You can discard cards to make zombies, but you'll also be triggering this Bone Miser, which will add black mana to your pool. Presumably another zombie, or if you're discarding a non-creature non-land, you'd be drawing a card as well. So you're kind of just filling your hand over and over again as you're discarding, making zombies, and making mana. As you're doing this, you're creating a zombie. Let's just treat this Pokemon sticker as a zombie. You'll be creating a zombie with this zombie infestation, discarding 2 cards. Presumably, if one of them is a land, you'll have 2 black mana. You would cast this nightmare, adding 3 energy to your pool. Conveniently, to lose cost 3 mana. So, which every card you discard to zombie infestation will be kind of in a pile for to lose to get back as soon as it dies. And Chthonian Nightmare allows you to loop, um, basically sacrificing a creature, returning this into to your hand, and then putting a creature from the graveyard into the battlefield. So you would be just looping, creating zombies, and it's very hard to miss. But you should be looping, creating mana, casting this, creating zombies, sacking the zombies to get this back. After you discard all your cards to the zombie infestation, you can sacrifice to lose to get back another creature in your graveyard. Um, to get the cards back discarded under to lose to your hand, and you can start the process over again. So you're asking, how do I win the game once I get these zombies in play? Well, with the kind of like the gaining momentum of mana, you'll be able to cast. Let's see here, the spell called Nexus of Fate. So this is also kind of insurance for you to not lose the game. Nexus of Fate is a 5 blue for an instant from M19. Take an extra trigger after this one. It would be put into any graveyard from anywhere as a second clause. So this would even also trigger if you discarded it and if you never casted the spell itself. It would shuffle back into the library. So essentially, this gives you a way to discard and never lose the game by milling yourself, or casting it on the turn you make infinite zombies, or maybe a finite amount of zombies, of course, but it would be a very large amount to cast this and then attack the board to win the game. So that's why you play this deck. I think it's pretty fun. I like to draw cards, and you accrue value that way. Um, in a sense, you're just playing a passive game, trying to survive. So how do we get there? So we have our creature suite here. So we have ways to gain passive value. Emrakul's Messenger, 2 for a 2/1, devoid flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn token. This is good for ramping and also just getting blockers. Mischievous Mystic, similar effect, except you create a 1/1 blue fairy instead of an Eldrazi. This is nice because you can randomly win games by just attacking with flyers in the late game. Another card I kind of don't like, I might want to cut, is Polywog Prodigy. It's a powerful card. It's a 2 for a 1/3 evolve. Whenever an opponent casts a non creature spell with mana value less than Polywog Prodigy's power, draw a card. A side note for this card, I don't have enough things to trigger the evolve, so it will never really get bigger than maybe a 3/5. And even in that case, when you're playing Casual Commander, players are casting a lot more creatures than non creatures, and then the non creature spells are generally bigger. You would say 2, 3, 4, 5. Costs. Kind of like the Bam Bams, the big spells that affect the board. So this doesn't really give you a lot of value in casual pods. I think in general it's just kind of a whatever card you can replace with a lot of things as well. Ledger Shredder, another card that gains passive value by just sitting on the board. It's 2 for a 1/3 flyer. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Ledger Shredder connives. And if you remember, conniving is drawing a card, then discarding a card. If you discard a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. The nice thing about this is if players are interacting with each other on other turns, not even your own turn, you will get to trigger this connive for that player. So it triggers for each player on each turn. Now some looters to go through. So we have some looters that are very good with Toluz in play. They're fine by themselves. Looting is a good way to filter your hand and improve your hand quality, make allow you to hit your land drops and such. But I chose probably 5 of the looters. I think 5 is a good number. Anything more, you're kind of diluting yourself. You're playing kind of like these dorky creatures with bad power toughness rates. But my favorite one so far in the deck is Magus of the Bazaar. It's 2 for a 0/1. Draw 2, then discard 3 cards. This card was designed to mirror the land from, I believe, Arabian Nights Bazaar of Baghdad, which is just a land that has one activated ability to tap to draw 2 cards and discard 3 cards. This is much worse, obviously, because it's a creature. It's affected by summoning sickness, but still, the effect still stands where if you're drawing 2 cards and passively letting Toulouse grow his pile with 3 cards each time you activate this ability, it's pretty good. Jace is kind of one that's just a looter, but when it flips into a planeswalker that has some cool abilities. The +1 allows you to bubble a creature until the next turn, so it reduces the power. It also gives a instant sorcery flashback for a -3 and then -9, which I never really get to use. I haven't used in a while. But you get an emblem that says whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So every spell becomes a total scour. Um, Likeness Looter is a looter that's a flying. It looks kind of innocuous, just a 1/1 for 2 draw discard, kind of a bad rate in today's Magic. But the nice ability is paying X allows it to become a copy of a creature in a graveyard with mana value X, except it has flying and this ability activate only as a sorcery. The idea is if Toulouse ever dies or you find it your way, find its way in the graveyard somehow, you can create a copy of, not create a copy, but make this into a copy by paying 3 mana, And it doesn't even require tapping, so you can use it on the turn you cast it, actually, which is really nice. But you can copy to lose, and you'll retain all the abilities, including the whenever you discard one or more cards, exile it from your graveyard, and then whenever this creature dies, put the cards exiled with it. So on the turns you want to go off, or the turns you want to kind of like get some value by discarding, you can use this ability to copy it. Kitsa, Otterball, Elite, another just generic looter. It can copy spells in corner cases, but it's a 2 for a 1/3 Vigilance Prowess. Tap to loot, pay 2 tap to copy an instant or sorcery control, only if the power of this creature is 3 or greater. So you have to trigger prowess a few times. Volhar, 2 for a 1/2 looter, but you can pay to sacrifice it, and you may cast a target instant or sorcery from your graveyard this turn. If the spell be so basically you just give a spell flashback and cast it. So there's another utility attached to a looter. Nothing too crazy, but those are kind of the cards that will accrue value per creatures with the loses ability. Some other ones are Psychic Frog, which I'm a big fan of. This will, you can discard it to pump it, but also when it deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card. In the late game, if you don't have access to the Bone Miser kind of combo or Zombie Infestation combo, Psychic Frog is a good outlet as well to pump this arbitrarily big, and then allow it to give it remove 3 cards from the graveyard to give it flying attack, and with the evasion, do a big chunk of damage if not lethal to a player. Um, so there's that. Some generic creatures that have good value also. Rafine Scheming Seer. This is another way to connive. It's a 3 for a 1/4 flying ward 1. Whenever you attack target creature gets connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. This is good with all the tokens you create. This is generally the better Esper Connive commander, but I think because Toulouse's ability was so unique, it drew me towards it. Um, Next are some clones. So I have Flesh Duplicate and Glasspool Mimic. They're clones. This one costs 2, this one costs 3. But these are ways to kind of trigger and kill your Toulouse without having a sack outlet. They also are generically good cards. It's Glasspool Mimic is a clone for your own creatures, but also serves as a land as MDFC. MDFC standing for multiple or dual faced card. Um, Flesh Duplicate is a cheap clone as well. Chasm Skulker. Here are some things that give you value when you draw and discard. Gixian Puppeteer, for example, 4 for a 4/3. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. The best ability on this card, though, is the second ability. That whenever this dies, return a target creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. I'll give you a little pop quiz here. Which creature in your deck is really important that costs 3 or less? Spoiler alert. Your commander. All right, so Chasm Skulker, another card that you can go off with as well with these cards in play. But it's 3 for a 1/1. It's kind of a bulk rare. But whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever it dies, put X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk onto the battlefield, where X is the number of counters on this creature. So you can essentially get this very big by drawing all the cards with these triggers, the Toulouse connive trigger, one at a time. But as you can see later, I have sack outlets that actually utilize the tokens as well. Body Launder is a cool one. Whenever a creature you control dies, I'm not talking your creature controls dies. Sorry, this creature connives. Whenever this dies, returns another target non-rogue creature from your graveyard with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield as Body Wanderer. So, not great with Toulouse because Toulouse, as you can see, is a rogue. But you can get other creatures such as Bone Miser if you needed to. And Shadowgrange Archfiend, I love this creature. I try to put this in decks that I discard a lot. But it has Madness, 2 black pay life. It's 7 for an 8/4. Whenever it ETBs, enter the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way. So it's a good way to get rid of large creatures that are coming your way. It's a good way to gain life. You can not really loop this too much. There's not a lot of ways to bounce things back to your hand, but there is a pretty easy way to just get value from Madness against if you discard so many cards at a time. I'll just kind of fly through some of these quick spells here. These are just draw spells. Careful Study to draw to discard. 3 Steps Ahead is an instance from Outlaws of Thunder Junction that has Spree. So this I love. As we do more of these deck types, you'll notice that I have a theme here. Is I try to play a lot of cards that have modes because I think Commander, one thing you run into is because you don't have redundancy too much. You can have redundancy in playing different cards that do the same thing with different names, of course, but I think like stapling multiple cards into one is a good way to take advantage of your card count. especially when cards like Three Steps Ahead exist, where you can pay blue plus two more to counter a spell. You pay three more to create a tokenless copy of a creature or artifact you control, which is like Toulouse, for example. You can trigger this as a clone, trigger the die ability, get the cards back to your hand, and then have another Toulouse in play to continue to do what you want to do. And then the other one is generic, pay two to draw two, discard a card. So I believe that's indexing, that ability is called. Daily Dispute, a sack outlet. An instant speed sack outlet to draw two, discard, and create a treasure token. Nothing too special about this. Just that it's a good way to kind of like get value when one of your creatures or artifacts are being targeted or to be removed. Windfall. This is very good with your Toulouse in play. But essentially, it'll make your wheel effect. This is a wheel effect. Whenever a wheel effect is whenever players have to discard or get rid of their hands somehow, like putting them in the bottom of the libraries, and then drawing that many cards, if not more. Windfall is kind of more of a fair one, where each player discards his or her hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number of players discarded this way. So this is kind of a way to equalize players' hands. Frantic Search is a good one. Three for an instant, where you draw two, discard two, and up to untap up to three lands. So it's essentially a free draw two, discard two. Um, but also, like, anything that discards with lose is good value. Next one is Lorien Revealed. This is a five mana draw three. Not really great rate as a sorcery, but the mode you're really looking for is the Island Cycle. Helps smooth out your mana draw. It also discards when you Island Cycle, so it discards and sits under to lose. It's kind of a free card there, so that's nice. Moving on, some more generic spells here. Things to kind of save creatures like Toulouse. Not that after all, Malika Rebirth, these are cards that will give it the ability to come back into the battlefield after it dies. So you can target Toulouse with these instants and then use a sack ability that I'm going to get to eventually. But that'll give you the ability to kind of get the cards back into your hand after you sack it, and then have this in play again to kind of continue your loops or continue to discard. Unearth and Savin's Reclamation are good ways to get this card back. You can play Reanimate, you can play other Reanimate abilities, but I think Unearth is just more efficient. I don't want to dilute the deck too much with too much Reanimate effects, because although you are drawing and discarding, with Toulouse in play, when you discard, you're not actually getting things into the graveyard, so you can't use Reanimate on big creatures, right? So it's like, if that's your strategy, you might want to choose a different commander, like Rafine, for example, but Unearth and Savine's Reclamation are good in general because there are ways to get to lose, and they also get better value later in the game. Change of Plans is a card that kind of gets. I love to add one or two of these cards in each of my decks, where you have an effect that phases or protects your things from wrath effects, board wipes, things of that nature. But this one's also a bonus because you get to phase. You get to get allow X target creatures you control to connive, and then you can have any number of them phase out, which is pretty good. Recall, a good catch-all card, relatively cheap for what it does, but it's a blue Eternal Witness, a blue regrowth. You can pay XX blue sorcery. Choose and discard X cards from your hand to take X target cards from your graveyard and put them in your hand. This is really important because there are some times where you kind of have one of these pieces you want to combo or something, and they're in your graveyard. This is a way to get them back. And if you remember, we do have some effects such as Volhar and Jace's Prodigy that allow you to flash things back. So you flash things back as well. If you're wondering how to cast this or what the mana ability or the mana cost would be for a certain number of cards, it scales up +1. So if you want to target two cards from your library or from your graveyard to put back to your hand, X is going to be 2, so your mana cost is going to be 5. If you want to target three things back, it'll be 3 plus 3 plus 1, so 7. So basically, it's going to be 2x plus 1 is essentially your formula for trying to figure out how many cards you're going to return. Wrinkle's Prank, another card I'm thinking about cutting, but every time I cast, it's pretty high impact. 4 for a sorcery, you can choose one or more effects. It mirrors the effects of, sort of Wrinkle, the Prank Master. I forgot the actual card name, Master of Pranks. But it's you can either make each player discard 2 cards, which is good for you. Each player loses 4 life, generically okay, and each player sacrificing 2 creatures. So with Toulouse in play and a stack of cards underneath it, it's actually pretty good to have choosing modes 1 and 3. The 4 life is kind of inconsequential. If you're ahead on life or something, it's good to use a second ability, but you generally don't want to use it. But having players discard 2 cards and then sacrifice 2 creatures is pretty good because what you're doing is um, you're feeding to lose, and then you're sacrificing to get it back to your hand. And Nexus of Fate, as I mentioned earlier, is just to take an extra turn card that helps you not lose a game if you go too deep into your deck and you want to be able to live. All right, so some interaction spells. So I have counter spells and removal in here. I have some counter spells and offer you can't refuse. This counters non-creature spells for 1 blue. Drown Lock, another mortal spell. This will allow you to counter target spell or destroy target creature based on the spell's mana value and the owner's graveyard. So you look that up. Just look at the card here. Forbids, great card. A 3 mana counterspell, not great rate, but there's a buyback. And buyback means when you pay this cost, which is to choose and discard 2 cards as you cast the spell, um, you can get the card back to your hand and you can cast it again. Now, it's pretty slow, it's pretty derpy, but it's very effective when the game goes mid to late game where your other players have, fewer cards in their hand and then the game's going kind of late and people have exhausted the resources. Meanwhile, you're able to kind of just go long and have discarded cards make sense for you and not for your opponents. Sick in a Stupor, probably my favorite card from this set for Commander. Generically strong version, stronger version of Unsubstantiate, which is a card from Eldritch Moon. But basically, this is 3 mana instant to return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So returning target spell is nice because this gets around cards that say can't be countered. Um, and this also is a bounce spell for not just creatures but non-land permanents. And also it serves as an MDFC, MFDC, I don't know. Uh, multiple yeah, multiple or multiple double face cards. I guess I guess it is MDFC, but this doubles up as a land as well. Swords of Plowshare, best removal spell in the format, I think. Bitter Triumph, 2 mana. I don't like 1-for-1 removal in Commander. It has to be very versatile, or you do something very good. But this catches a creature or a planeswalker. As an additional cost, you can either pay 3 life or discard a card. And like I said before, discarding cards in this deck is good. Dam is a good target removal, but also it's modal in the sense that you can overload it for 2 and white to destroy each creature. Um, Overload is a mechanic that allows you to substitute a target with each. So in this case, it's black sorcery to destroy target creature, and then that creature can be regenerated that way. Regenerated that way. And overloaded is 2 white replaces target, so it would be 2 white to destroy each creature, and those creatures destroyed this way or that way cannot be regenerated. So Toxic Deluge, my favorite mass removal spell. 2 black, just sorcery as additional cost, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. Anguish Unmaking, a nice catch-all spell. 3 mana, exile non-land permanent, use 3 life. And Lethal Scheme, probably a pretty very good card in this deck where you aren't necessarily going wide, but you do have a lot of creatures to convoke. But it also allows you to destroy target creature or planeswalker. And the creature that any creature that convoke this way to contribute to spell to casting the spell gets to connive. So 4 may seem a lot to destroy target creature planeswalker in this day and age, but you do have enough things to convoke and make it pretty easy. Some more permanents here. Shorikai Genesis Engine. It's a vehicle for mana for an 8/8 legendary artifact vehicle. Pay 1, tap it, draw 2 cards, and discard a card, and creates a token, a pilot. You can also crew this for 8 power. I generally never crew this, um, but I use it for the ability because you can draw 2, discard a card to lose, and then make a 1/1. So even if this is just a 4 mana, 1 mana to activate on the turn, it's around and another player removes it, you get pretty good value off of it that way. Teferi's Aegis Insight. I mean, this is a pretty common card in Commander where there are decks that are drawing whatever. But this is whenever you draw a card, except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. And what you can do is you can take advantage of the looting effects in your deck where you draw and discard, but instead of drawing 1 card, you're going to draw 2 cards and discard a card. So it just makes your math that much better in terms of card advantage and being able to kind of churn through your deck. Teferi Master of Time, fantastic card. 4 mana Planeswalker, 3 loyalty counters. Really important here, you can activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time, on any player's turn. At any time you can cast an instant. So the +1 is draw and discard. -3 is target creature you don't control phases out, and -10 gives you 2 extra turns after this one. The nice part is that you can activate the +1 or any of the abilities on each of your players' turns. So when you cast this on your turn, you'll be able to activate it 4 times before it gets to your turn cycle or to your turn again. So for one turn cycle, you have 4 activations. It goes up to 7. You can choose to draw and discard, which looting. Um, but you can also go up a few times, tick it down, things like that. So it's pretty nice. The last card I want to feature here is Mind Over Matter. It's a pretty broken card, but it's another discard outlet. You can put it over here, I guess. But it allows you to choose and discard a card, tap or untap target artifact, creature, or land. So it gives you an enabler to discard cards for Toluz to eat, but also you can untap your lands and cast spells, do that, things like that, or pass to each player's turn, and then tap their permanents down, not allow them to attack. You play politics like this, so it's pretty good. It's pretty aggressively costed. 2 blue. Sorry, not aggressively costed in a good way. It's aggressively costed in a bad way. Very blue heavy. 2 blue for an enchantment. Other permanents I have here, Skull Clamp, pretty self-explanatory. Card gets you pretty good value for cards in your deck, creatures in your deck that have 1 toughness or less. The idea is that you attach this to the creature, it dies, you draw 2 cards. Usually, when you connive with Toluz, you want to discard a land, so you don't pump it too big enough to get around Skull Clamp. You want to keep it around as like a 3/1. If you're going to grow it, you can use it as an attacker, but generally Toluz is just there to gain you passive value. Martyr's Cause and Fanatical Devotion are ways to have sack outlets. They're free, they're instant speed, they actually have some function. Fanatical Devotion sacks a creature to regenerate target creature. Martyr's Cause sacrifices a creature, prevents all damage to a creature or player from one source. So this is a nice like fog effect, and this is a nice like regeneration kind of bubble. Um, Phyrexian Altar is a pretty well known artifact. Sacrifice a creature to add 1 mana of any color. Also another way you can use towards your combo um, as a sack outlet if you want to use Chthonian Nightmare. But you can kind of use these to get your way to this sweet spot. Here are some really cool spells too as part of the deck. Usually there's pretty big blowouts, but Abjure and Flare of Denial are ways to sacrifice or to lose to counter target spell. And then Flare of Malice is a similar effect where you sacrifice a non-token black creature as a cost. Um, and then you can sacrifice each. The effect is that each opponent sacrifices a creature of the greatest mana value they control among creatures or planeswalkers they control. So the idea is because sacrificing is part of the cost, um, you will get the die ability as an instant speed that's kind of uncounterable, um, as opposed to some of these permanents that require you to have them in play and resolve for you to use the sacrifice ability. Mana rocks, nothing crazy here, just the best ones for 3 colors. Soul Ring, Felwar Stone, Arcane Signets, the 3 talismans of each guild, blue, black, white, black. Sorry, blue, black, blue, white, and white, black. Demir Signet, so the 3 signets, of course, blue, black, blue, white, and white, black. Thought Vessel, and Decanter of Endless Water. So I don't like these effects in general, unless you're playing a 2 color deck, you don't have a lot of rocks. Thought Vessel's fine. But in this deck, you will find yourself getting very large hand sizes with Toulouse in play, and then trying to, kind of like getting this card of cards piled back in your hand. But it's just, these are nice to have. I would play these. I would not play Reliquary Tower. I think Reliquary Tower is kind of an overrated card. A lot of players play. If it's a deck where like you are abusing your hand size, like Niv Visionary, for example, you probably do want Reliquary Tower. And it's a 2 color deck, so your mana base isn't too affected. But I think it's really important to me. A big principle I try to follow is like you want to play the game. You want to be able to play the game, so your mana base should support that. Segueing to that nicely here is my mana base. So I don't have each fetch of each color. I used to proxy them, and I just felt like didn't need to. I have the cards, I might as well just leave them up. And most of my decks you'll see is just cards that I own. Um, and if not, if I like the deck enough, I will start to tune it with specific corner case cards that are only good for that synergy. But to belaboring the point there, but essentially, I like to play with the cards that I have. So, 2 fetch lands. You play Marsh Flats instead of the Ash Barrens, but I do like the fact that Ash Barrens and Barrymore discard. I Ganja, same effect, or a similar concept there is that it discards as part of the cost to use the ability. Spy Master's Vault, another card that I found pretty valuable. Excuse me. On the turns that you're sacrificing a lot of things, you can create a very large creature. Um, when you're sacrificing a lot of creatures, you can use this ability to connive X, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. Phyrexian Tower, I like as an instant speed sacrifice effect. It's a pretty expensive card. If you want to use a substitute, you can use Lazatip Query or High Market or other, instant speed sac effects, but you're going to need to be able to sacrifice to lose. Players will try to Path to Exile or exile it, or try to destroy it on the stack of the ability coming into play, things like that. So, uh, generically good mana cards here. Command Tower, 3-color deck. You need a land that adds 3-color with no consequence. Exotic Orchard. Generally, you'll catch 2 to 3 colors with this card. Another, I just like untapped lands. Gloomlake Verge, one of the newer lands from Duskmourn. That adds for blue, but adds for black if you control an instant. If you control an island or swamp. What you'll notice is that most of the deck is primarily blue white, or sorry, blue black. There are some white cards splashed in here, like the enchantments that sacrifice, but most of the deck you want to be drawing, discarding, sacrificing. So a lot of concepts that are mostly in blue and white. I have the Battle Bond lands here, so Morphic Pool, Sea of Clouds, and Vault of Champions. Rafine's Tower. Since I have the fetch lands, they help just get this out. So I have like better mana, but also cycles. So you can pay 3, discard, and draw a card. I have Surveil lands here, so you have the ability to kind of bin things in the graveyard. Not the best deck for Surveil lands because you don't play a lot of fetch lands, but they're there. Shock lands for each color, so Godless Shrine, Holophon, Watery Grave, and then basics. So another philosophy thing here. I have in 3-color decks. I'd like to stick around 34, 35 lands. I don't like 35 too much, just like I feel like I get flooded a lot, and generally my decks are kind of lower curve. Um, but with basic lands, I like to kind of keep it around, for 2-color, I like around like 16, 14 to 16. There are enough utility lands and dual lands they've printed now in Magic where you should be able to get your land count up. There are also like, budget alternatives for 3-color decks. I like to have maybe 12, 10 or 12, 14 basics. 4-color decks, I like to have maybe 5 or 6, and then 5-color decks, one of each. It's just really tough to play, 4 or 5-color decks with that many basic lands. You'll find it really restrictive. And also, if you notice in this deck, there's not a lot of colorless utility lands. Just maybe 1 or 2. The rest of them do something or get colored mana. So anyway, that's the deck. Toluz, Clever Conductor. Hopefully, I was able to help you out with, how you would build this deck, or potentially how you could build other decks of this nature. Um, I'll go ahead and actually shuffle up for you, and we can walk through some gold fishing. I like to goldfish my decks a lot, while I'm working or while I'm sitting around. I just like how to envision how like the deck plays, and kind of imagine like interaction, things like that. So, um, yeah, hopefully you like it. Hopefully your days are going well. This is my first video. Let me know if you have feedback for how I can improve this. But um, I know it's probably going pretty long. I gotta probably maybe focus these a little bit more. Um, but here we go. Shuffle this up nice and good, considering I just separated everything. Um, so one thing I will say is the early iterations of this deck were pretty weird. I went through Reanimator phase and realized it doesn't, not really effective with Toluz in play. I went through a phase where you try to go wide with tokens, and you're just kind of underwhelming in these colors in Esper to go wide, especially if your commander doesn't do anything with the tokens, like that one Esper zombie one does, or like Alesha, right? Like there are a lot better token based commanders that do that. One big thing that I am really, you'll hear me mention a lot too, is that I just don't like tribal decks. I prefer to make my decks like synergy based and like play mechanics of the game. I think to me like, Wizards has created a game and the card kind of like a card pool where um, tribal decks are too easy to make. I think they're pushed. Most tribes are pretty pushed. Or, I'm sorry, most kindreds, I guess you would call most kins are pretty pushed. So I just don't like them in general. I think they're pretty boring. The playstyle's pretty boring. They're good, right? Panglaza, which is the dinosaur deck, is very good. Anything that is a 5 mana 4/4 that discovers and also gives your other dinosaur spells discover is pretty insane. But to me, it's you're not really like, why would they make that a Naya? It's kind of silly. It's just the thing costs 5 already for 4/4. It's already well rated. You know, they keep making these dinosaurs that are cheaper and really like good rates for their bodies and their effects. So anyway, that's my rant on Kindred decks. All right, so let's go ahead and take a sample 7 here. We'll open 7. We have Felwarstone, Watery Grave, Drunn Luck, Folhar, Nexus of Fate, and Talisman. Essentially, this is a mulligan of one card because your Nexus of Fate is not very good right now. It won't be good for a while. But I think this is a keep. You got 2 lands, 2 rocks, you have a looter to go through your deck, and you can cast Toluz on 3, which is pretty good. So we'll draw, we'll play our Watery Grave. Sequencing is really important. You want to be playing your tap lands early so you don't have to pay 2 life. I know in Commander you have 40 life, I understand, but I think you want to be able to maximize your, just like play the best way. It doesn't take much effort. I think you can have fun, but you can also just play the best way. So I can draw, play your island, and then I like to cast the looter here instead of the rock. I think it's really important that you get looters in play so you can draw and discard to stay at the tap to use that. Draw. This might be a game where you don't cast your rocks early. So you can, well, I think you might want to cast your rocks early this game. You want to cast your signets, by the way, before you cast your talismans, because your talismans tap for mana, where signets require extra mana to be floated into them. So you can cast your talisman here. You want to, pass the turn, end step, draw, discard. Probably discard the Nexus of Fate, trigger this, and so each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Shuffle the Nexus of Fate into your deck. Wait, is it? Yeah, shuffle into the deck. Okay, I can't remember if it was at the bottom of the deck, but yeah, shuffle into your deck. So shuffle. That's draw. It's probably better actually to cast a Felwar Stone instead of the Talisman. If you're holding up the Felwar Stone and one of your opponents is playing blue as a blue land, it could represent you holding up a blue mana for like a Swan Song or some kind of 1 mana counter spell. Draw. Here you can cast your Toluz. Actually, you can cast your Ledger Shredder first. Ledger Shredder with this blue black. That way you can get the Connive trigger here. Cast Toluz on the stack. Connive. This is your second spell you cast. Draw, discard. You could probably discard the Felwar Stone here. So this goes to your graveyard because Toulouse is not in play, so you're not going to get the discard exile effect. ETB is going to draw and discard. Discard looter. When you have a looter in play, you kind of don't want to have too many looters. They're just like I said, they're kind of dorky. It depends if like the board is pretty packed and people are attacking you. There's an argument to discard the forbid. It's a little bit too slow. But you can do that, and then you can pass turn and step draw. Or sorry, we didn't play a land yet for the turn. I think, yeah, we can play land. So we'll play the polluted delta at the end step, or or your opponent's end step, whatever it is. You're gonna fetch. Look for a surveillance. We're missing white, so we could look for white. Maybe get a white black land actually, because we have dam in our hand, so we may eventually want to use double white, double black. Okay, so let's surveil. Sea of Clouds, we can bin another land. Remember, things that surveil or mill don't go under Toluz, only discarded cards. And then we're going to draw and discard. We can get rid of the Kitsa here. It's a little bit too important to get rid of the recall. This is one of the cards you just kind of never discard until late when you want to use it. Here you're gonna discard Ash Barrens, trigger to lose, and you'll get a swamp and play it. I've noticed a lot of players these days with monocolor decks playing like moon effects or permanents that affect the lands in play. So blood moon or winter moon or things like that affect non-basic lands. So you do want to place a decent amount of basics if you can play around it by fetching and getting basic lands. You probably should. You don't want to get locked out of the game for just your mana base sucks or you don't have enough rocks, things like that. So you just go to attack, whatever it is, draw, discard. It's kind of the part of the game where you just wait, kind of waiting, trigger Ledger Shredder maybe on somebody else's turn, discard, kind of churning through your deck here. Let's say, for example, you want to cast Dam because the board is getting crazy. You can cast Dam like this. In response, draw, discard. Discard your land. Everything dies. You can maybe put Toluz in the command zone for now, just because the game's going to go kind of long, so you'll be able to just cast it for 5 pretty easily. Play a land for the turn. Let's see. You probably want to hold up some counter magic, so play one of the untapped lands, cast your Kitsa, and then pass the turn with 7 cards in hand. Go to the next turn. Thought Vessel, cast Talisman, play a Godless Shrine untapped. Cast the Commander. This. Yeah. Draw, discard. You can probably just discard the Ash Barrens. And then I can go the long game where you can either counterspell, remove things, right? We're gonna draw, discard the land, getting a little bit flooded. Now we're just kind of trying to survive. Apply some pressure where it applies. But you just have a lot of permission here. You could try to go for a value recall and just get some permanents that do stuff in play to churn through your deck, but you're not really under pressure to do anything. You just play your land. Or maybe hold the land to discard and pass. Now you have the ability to kind of forbid with buyback pretty easily. You have a Flare of Denial to counter a spell and also sacrifice to get cards back to your hand from Toluz. So we're just going to loot, discard a land, Soul Ring, perfect. Love drawing it on turn 10. Another generic removal spell, which is good. We'll imagine that we had to remove something, right? We'll draw, discard. Perfect. So we can start kind of accelerating the draw here. Let's discard. Let's discard the Jean and Walk. Draw. This is a pretty good one. So we can cast this pretty easily. 4 mana. Cast Shurikai. We can cast this pretty safely now with all the counter spells in our hand. We'll cast this, discard 3, for example, and then draw. Let's say somebody has 4 cards in their hand. Play. It's probably wrong. I should have played a land, or maybe I think I already did. I can play. Careful Study. Draw 2. Discard Command Tower and Island. and then holding up 2 blue mana, I can just you know maybe I should cast. Maybe I should tap better actually. But cast Emrakul's Messenger and hold up Sink in the Stupor. So what I'll do is I'll probably in the next turn I will draw 2 discard, trigger the Emrakul's Messenger to get an Eldrazi spawn token, discard land, and now I have, sorry, like this. I'll have access to blue colorless to cast Sink in the Stupor if I need. End step, draw, discard a card, and just pass a turn. Go to the next turn. Draw. We're not really drawing much. Like I said, we're drawing a lot of air, but it's functional, I guess you could say. Cast the Rafine's Scheming Seer. Go to attacks and then connive with this. Let's say our connive is 3 4-hour flyer. So we would draw 3, discard 3. Let's discard 3 basic lands. Play our land for the turn. This is our another instant sack a creature effect. Because we drew our second card that turn, we're going to trigger Emrakul's Messenger. We'll pass the turn, we're going to create another pilot and draw 2, discard a card. This is pretty good now. Discard this. We'll trigger Emrakul's Messenger. So now in the next turn, if I don't know, potentially there's interaction going on from other players, of course. We have a giant stack with Toluz. We're going to draw a card. This is where we're going to start to go off. Maybe we have a Skull Clamp that we can cast. With our 2 or 3 or 4 tokens now, we're going to be able to start clamping our tokens with our, with land mana, and start to clamp our pilots and start to draw. Right, we have some removal, some lands. We're looking for a discard outlet here. Nothing. We can cast our Chasm Skulker to trigger whenever we draw cards, make it bigger. We'll start to clamp through our stuff. We don't have infinite mana, of course, but we do have. We'll presume that we've done this maybe 6 or 7 times. Continue to do this. We'll cast Frantic Search. We'll draw 2, discard 2, untap the lands. Let's see here. Do we have anything good? Not really. We can continue to clamp. Okay, so we do have like an outlet here. And we do have the Thought Vessel, so our hand size doesn't really matter this turn. But essentially, on this, these turns, you'll find yourself with a big hand size and be able to dump cards into your Psychic Frog or Zombie Infestation, whatever it may be, and then you'll be able to sacrifice this with Lazative Query, your Toluz, for example, to get the cards you discarded back into your hand, things of that nature. So, yeah, this is one of those games where I didn't really draw the combo pieces, but I did draw the effects to get you there in kind of a more fair game. Anyway, I hope you like this deck tech and gold fishing. Hope to make this better next time. Looking forward to the next video. Appreciate it. And everyone. Bye.